Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unraveling the incredible true story of Rani Lakshmibai. We're going to explore exactly how a 29-year-old widow, caught right in the crosshairs of a massive empire, became one of India's most enduring symbols of resistance, bravery, and sacrifice. Let's get right into it.
मैं अपनी झांसी नहीं दूंगी. Or in English, I shall not surrender my Jhansi. This single, defiant declaration is basically the absolute cornerstone of her legend. Now, it's worth noting that historians point out there isn't actually a contemporary record confirming she spoke these exact words verbatim, but you know what? This quote brilliantly captures the high-stakes reality of her life. It's the ultimate battle cry of a woman who was pushed into a corner by the world's most powerful empire, and, well, she decided to push back.
Part 1. Origins of a Warrior Queen. She was born in Varanasi around 1828 as Manikarnika Tombe, or just Manu for short. Sadly, she lost her mother at a really young age, but being raised by her father in a royal court meant her upbringing was anything but typical. She wasn't just taught traditional subjects. She was actively trained in martial arts. We're talking sword fighting, archery, and horseback riding on her favorite horses, which are traditionally remembered as Sarangi, Pavan, and Badal. Plus, she was educated in politics and history right alongside boys who would actually later become prominent rebel leaders themselves, like Nana Sahib and Tatia Tope. Then, in 1842, everything shifted. She married Maharaja Gangadhar Rao at a young age, stepping fully into royalty. And with this marriage, her name was changed to honor the Hindu goddess of wealth. So she officially became Rani Lakshmibai of Jhansi. But as it turned out, royal life brought some profound heartbreak. The couple had a son, but he tragically died when he was just a few months old. Realizing his own health was rapidly declining, the Maharaja made a really crucial decision on his deathbed in 1853. He adopted a 5-year-old relative named Damodar Rao to be his successor. I mean, just imagine the desperate stakes here. A dying king essentially begging an empire to recognize a young boy as the rightful heir just to protect his kingdom. He even wrote this heartfelt letter to the British East India Company, pleading with them to recognize his widow as the regent. But unfortunately, that letter fell on completely deaf ears. Part 2. The Bureaucratic Catalyst. So the crucial turning point in our story involves a policy enforced by Governor-General Lord Dalhousie. It was known as the Doctrine of Lapse. Basically, under this rule, if an Indian ruler died without a biological or natural heir, the British East India Company would simply swallow up their state. So, applying this, they flat-out refused to recognize the 5-year-old adopted Damodar Rao as the legal heir. Literally with the stroke of a pen, they completely invalidated his succession. In 1854, the British formally annexed Jhansi. They granted the Rani a lifetime pension of 5,000 rupees a month and outright ordered her to vacate the fort. But as you might guess, she didn't just walk away quietly. She fought back hard through diplomatic channels. She hired a lawyer and sent multiple appeals, citing both Hindu tradition and decades-old British treaties. But the British, they completely ignored her arguments and rejected every single appeal. And if that wasn't audacious enough, they actually demanded that she pay off 36,000 rupees of her late husband's debts right out of her own pension. Part 3. The 1857 Rebellion and the Jokin Bagh Massacre. By May 1857, native troops began mutinying against their British officers, and by June, that chaos arrived right at Jhansi's doorstep. Around 60 British men, women, and children took refuge in the town's fort. After a few tense days, they surrendered under the promise of safe passage. But tragically, they were led to a garden called Jokin Bagh and were brutally massacred. So the looming historical question that is still debated today is, did the Rani actually order this? Well, British suspicions were immediate. Some eyewitnesses claimed she promised the safe passage herself, and later on, items belonging to the victims were reportedly found in her palace. Plus, her own father was actively participating with the rebels. But on the flip side, we have the Rani's own letters written to British Major Erskine. In those letters, she explicitly states that she was being held hostage by the mutineers, that they were threatening to burn her palace to the ground, and she actively pleaded with the British for help to restore order. So what really happened? The truth remains heavily debated to this very day. But regardless of her exact involvement in the massacre, the mutineers pretty quickly packed up and left for Delhi. This left a massive power vacuum in Jhansi, and the Rani immediately stepped up to fill it. A famous proclamation went out stating, "The people are God's, the country is the emperor's, and the rule is Lakshmibai's." Operating with temporary authorization from the British, she just started governing. She collected taxes, she distributed donations to the poor, and she even successfully fought off invading armies from neighboring states. And crucially for what was about to happen next, she began repairing the fort and raising troops. Part 4. The Final Stand. Things escalated fast. In March 1858, the British laid siege to Jhansi's massive 25-foot granite walls. And the Rani? She didn't hide. She personally led the defense, firing back capably until British artillery finally breached the walls. Then, in early April, she pulled off this absolutely legendary feat of daring. She escaped the totally surrounded fort in the dead of night on horseback, with her adopted son tied literally to her back. She then rode over 100 miles to Kalpi to join other rebel leaders. After a tough defeat there in May, she orchestrated a brilliant strategic retreat to the incredibly imposing Gwalior fort. It all ultimately culminated on the 18th of June, 1858, at the Battle of Kota Ki Sarai near Gwalior. True to form, she was leading from the front, fighting fiercely in hand-to-hand combat against a British cavalry charge. But tragically, she was mortally wounded. She was only 29 years old. Her final wish was that the British wouldn't capture her body, so her loyal attendants quickly cremated her right there near the battlefield. Major General Hugh Rose, the British commander she was fighting against, actually wrote in his post-battle report that she was the best and bravest of the rebels. He even noted that her qualities made her the absolute most dangerous of all the rebel leaders. I mean, think about that. When your fiercest enemy writes your greatest epitaph, you know for sure you've left a staggering mark on history. Part 5. An Enduring Cultural Legacy. As you can imagine, her story deeply, deeply resonated with later generations fighting for Indian independence. Fast forward to 1943, right in the middle of World War II. Revolutionary nationalist Subhash Chandra Bose formed the Indian National Army to fight the British. Recognizing her incredibly potent symbolism, he actually created an all-female combat regiment and proudly named it the Rani of Jhansi Regiment. But the way she's remembered today is incredibly complex and multi-layered. On one hand, you have the traditional upper caste narrative that views her as this ultimate flawless national hero. But on the other side, Dalit communities have their own really powerful narratives that elevate figures like Chalkaribai. According to Dalit oral accounts, Chalkaribai was his fiercely loyal confidant, completely equal in martial arts to the Rani, who actually disguised herself as the queen to allow Lakshmibai to escape Jhansi in the first place. Today, different communities often celebrate these figures in their own unique ways, which really shows us how historical memory is actively shaped by the people who tell the story. The sheer scale of her legacy is massive. We're talking everything from Subhadra Kumari Chauhan's iconic poem Jhansi Ki Rani, which generations of children have literally memorized, to modern military regiments, blockbuster movies, and just countless statues everywhere depicting her on horseback with her son. Her image is permanently woven into the very fabric of the public sphere. So I want to leave you with this final thought. We've explored the facts today, right? The treaties, the brutal battles, that daring midnight escape. But we've also seen how her story morphed into a legend that almost resembles mythological goddesses. So does the true power of Rani Lakshmibai lie in the grounded historical reality of a young widow fighting off a massive bureaucracy and an imperial army? Or does it lie in the universal, untouchable myth she became to inspire a whole nation? It's a very blurry line between history and legend, and honestly, that's exactly what makes her story so utterly fascinating to explore. Thanks so much for joining me for this explain.